August 12th, 1940. I am writing this by the light of a single, hooded bulb in the crew room. My hand is not steady. It is this perpetual trembling, deep in the bones, that I cannot seem to warm away, even though the evening is close and heavy. We have been at readiness since dawn, and the summer sky is only now beginning to bruise into dusk. I can still taste the cordite from the guns, metallic on the back of my tongue. I can still hear it, not the engines, but a high, thin singing in my ears that has nothing to do with music. Today I killed men. Not machines. Men. It is one thing to practice on a drogue target, to see your wild rounds stitch a neat pattern across the canvas. It is quite another to see your fire rake across a Messerschmitt's cockpit, to see the plexiglass splinter and bloom with oil, and then to watch that beautiful, deadly machine roll over onto its back and fall. Not like an aeroplane, but like a stone, a trail of thick, black smoke marking its grave. I followed it for a second, a fatal second, they would tell me in training, and I saw it was not just smoke. It was fire, a furnace, trailing a long, dirty plume across the perfect blue of the channel. I do not know if the pilot got out. I tell myself he could not have. It is easier to think he was already gone. But the image is burned behind my eyes, that small, dark object tumbling against the sky, separate from the burning wreck. It happened so fast. One moment we were climbing, the Merlin howling in that familiar, straining pitch, the supercharger gulping air. We were Angels 15, south of Maidstone, and the controller's voice in my ear was calm, almost bored. 100+ bandits, Canterbury to Dungeness. Maintain Angels 25. Over. Then we saw them. Not as individual aircraft, but as a stain. A swarm. A cloud of gnats above the hop fields. I forgot everything then. I forgot to check my mirrors, I forgot my height, I forgot the man flying on my wing. There was only the target. The leading Dornier, fat and ugly, filling my reflector sight. I pressed the firing button. The whole airframe shuddered. The smell of burned cordite filled the cockpit. Tracer arched out, beautiful and lazy in the sunlight, before snapping into the bomber's flank. And then the sky was full of devils. The 109s came down out of the sun, as they always do. I broke hard, the blood draining from my head, the G-force pressing me into my seat like a giant hand. The sky became a carousel. Snatches of hurricane, a flash of yellow nose, a blur of black crosses. I fired at one that crossed my path, a snapshot, more hope than aim. I saw pieces fly off it. A wingtip, maybe. Then he was gone, and I was alone. That is the thing they do not tell you. The loneliness. You are packed into this metal tube, surrounded by 100 feet of wingspan and 1,000 horsepower, and yet you are utterly, terrifyingly alone. You cannot speak to anyone. You are just a voice on the R/T, and when the sky goes quiet, when the fight moves on and leaves you behind, there is only the wind and the drone of your own engine and the sudden, shocking realization that you are still alive. I landed back at Biggin with the sun low, my fuel gauges hovering near empty. The airfield was a chaos of activity. I saw the ambulances by the duty hut before I saw the holes in the tarmac. A hangar was burning, a sullen orange glow against the twilight. They waved me in, and I taxied past a Spitfire, or what was left of one. It was just a charred skeleton, the fabric of its wings gone, its undercarriage collapsed like a broken bird. The fire crews were still hosing it down, the water hissing into steam. I did not see who it was. In the debriefing, the intelligence officer, a pale man with a neat mustache, asked me questions I could barely answer. How many? What type? Where did you see them go down? I gave him my best guesses. I claimed a Dornier damaged, a 109 probably destroyed. They're just words on a form. They do not tell him about the face I thought I saw, for just a fraction of a second, in the cockpit of the Messerschmitt as it fell. They do not tell him about the heat I felt on my own face, just for an instant, as I flew through the smoke of its passing. They do not tell him that my hands will not stop shaking. Now I sit here in my Irvine jacket, still stiff with sweat, the fleece collar damp against my neck. The other pilots are talking, the clack of a weary game of chess in the corner, the wireless playing somewhere, a tinny Johnny tune. It feels obscene. How can the world be so normal? How can a man play chess after watching another man burn? I look at their faces. We are all the same. Too pale. Too quiet. We laugh too loudly at nothing, and our eyes are fixed on some middle distance, somewhere beyond these walls. We are all writing our own diaries tonight, I think. We are all trying to make sense of the senseless. Tomorrow we will do it all again. We will sit in our deck chairs by the dispersal hut, reading the morning papers, waiting for the telephone to ring. We will pretend we are not afraid. But the fear is a taste in the mouth, a weight in the gut. It is the smell of high-octane fuel and hot oil. It is the face of a man I killed, falling through the clean, indifferent air. I have been here 12 days. It feels like 12 years. The rhythm of this life is a strange, discordant thing. It is hours of the most profound tedium, split by minutes of a terror so absolute that it strips everything away. We live in the gaps between the fighting. That is the truth of it. The day begins before dawn. We are woken by the Batman, a soft knock and a murmured 5 o'clock, sir, a ghost in the blackout. I lie still for a moment, the bed hard and narrow, and I listen. The silence. It is the only time the sky is truly quiet. I dress in the dark by touch. The thick wool of the tunic, the stiff leather of the flying boots. We shuffle to breakfast in a silence as deep as the dawn. No one speaks. There is nothing to say that has not already been said 100 times. The mess is lit by the same hooded bulbs, the windows blacked out with heavy paper. We eat eggs and bacon, tinned tomatoes, thick slices of bread with margarine. We eat without tasting. It is fuel, nothing more. Then to dispersal. Our home away from home. A Nissen hut, curved and corrugated, smelling of damp canvas, cigarette smoke, and the sharp, chemical tang of the glycol used in our engines. Deck chairs are set out on the grass outside, facing the runway. We sit there, in our Mae Wests and our flying gear, looking for all the world like holidaymakers waiting for the sun. But we do not read novels. We scan the sky. We watch the clouds. We listen. The weather is the real commander here. A low, thick overcast is our best friend. It means the bombers will not come. It means we can breathe. A high, hazy sky with patches of brilliant blue is our enemy. It is a German sky. It gives them cover, and it gives their escorts the advantage of the sun. Today was a high sky. We knew, even before the telephone rang. We wait. We play cards. Brag mostly. Small stakes. No one wants to think about money. The clack of the cards is a comfort, a small ritual of normalcy. Sometimes we talk about home in fragments. Johnny, who flew a hurricane in France, he has a wife and a new baby he has only seen in photographs. He carries the picture in his breast pocket, over his heart. I asked him once if he was not afraid of the fire, of it burning. He just shrugged. If it gets that far, he said, I won't be worrying about a photograph. Peter, my flight commander, was a solicitor in London before the war. He still talks like one, precise and careful, even when describing a dogfight. He is 26. He seems ancient to me. Letters come in the afternoon post. They are our only real link to the other world, the world before. My mother writes every few days. Her letters are full of the small doings of our village, the price of vegetables, the gossip about the vicar's new wife, the progress of her victory garden. She writes about the boys I grew up with who are now in the army, in North Africa, or on ships in the Atlantic. She does not mention the war, not really. She builds a wall of words against it, a little fortress of normal life. She tells me to keep my feet dry, and to be sure to eat properly. I read them, and I feel a terrible distance. That world, the world of garden fences and village fates and the worry over potato blight, it is a fairy tale. It is a story someone told me once, a long time ago. I fold the letters carefully and put them in the inside pocket of my tunic, next to my identity card. They are talismans. The heat today was oppressive. We lay in our deck chairs, sweating in our flying suits, the air thick and heavy as wool. The only sounds were the occasional crackle from the R/T in the dispersal hut, the distant hum of a grass cutter, and the constant, low drone of activity from the airfield itself. The smell of hot grass and clover mixed with the ever-present tang of fuel and oil. A lark was singing somewhere high above, a ridiculous, joyful sound, utterly at odds with everything. I watched it, a tiny speck against the blue, and I thought about how it would live its whole life in this sky, never knowing what we bring to it. Then the telephone rings. It is a sound that bypasses the ears and goes straight to the spine. Every man freezes. The game of cards stops. The lazy conversations die. We all look at the dispersal hut, at the corporal who lifts the receiver. He listens, says, "Yes, sir," and puts it down. He steps to the door. "A flight," he calls. "Readiness state." "Scramble." His voice is flat, devoid of emotion. He is just the messenger. And we move. It is not a rush. It is a practiced, economic efficiency. Cards are dropped on the grass. Books are closed. We walk, not run, to our aircraft. My Spitfire is waiting. My Mark I, P-7305. I know its every rivet, every oil streak. I run through the drills by touch, by instinct. Straps, harness, oxygen, radio trim. The ground crew, my fitter and rigger, are already there, faces etched with a permanent, anxious weariness. The fitter gives me a thumbs up. "All sweet, sir," he shouts over the growing noise. I nod. I cannot speak. My voice is already gone. The engine catches with a cough and a roar, a cloud of pale blue smoke. The Merlin settles into its familiar, thunderous rumble. I feel the vibration through the airframe, through my boots, into my very bones. I taxi out, weaving to see past the long nose, following the Marshallers bats. And then I am at the head of the runway, looking down that long strip of grass. The windsock is limp. The sky ahead is vast and empty. For a single perfect second, there is only the roar of the engine and the pounding of my heart. Then the green very light arcs up from the caravan. I open the throttle. The power slams into my back. The tail comes up. The grass blurs beneath me, and the world narrows to a single point on the horizon. The waiting is over. The terror begins. It comes not with a bang, but with a whisper in your ear. That is the strangest part. One moment you are climbing, the world reduced to the drone of your engine and the hypnotic shimmer of heat haze over the cowling. The next, a voice, thin and metallic through the headphones. "Tally-ho! Bandits at 2 o'clock low. Many bandits." And then you see them. Today it was over the channel. We had been vectored out over the sea, towards a rumor of a raid. The coast fell away behind us, a smudge of green and white. The water below was a gray-green slate, flecked with the occasional white cap. I tried to keep my eyes moving, scanning, always scanning. High, low, left, right, behind. They tell you that a pilot who stares is a dead pilot. But your eyes want to fix on something, to find a focus in all that empty space. Then I saw them. Not the bombers, not yet. But the specks. They were high, much higher than us, glittering in the sun. Crosses. I counted. 2, 4, 6, a dozen. They were specks, but they were moving fast, growing. My mouth went dry. It was not the dry of fear, not yet. It was a physical thing, as if all the moisture in my body had been sucked away. I pressed my transmit button. Many 109s, high at 1 o'clock. My voice was calm. It did not sound like my voice. The next few seconds are a blur of training and instinct. I remember the section leader's command, "Stick together. Hold your height." But the 109s were already diving. They come down like falcons, beautiful and terrible, the sun flashing on their wings. You do not hear them. That is another thing. You do not hear the guns that are aimed at you. You only see the tracer, a sudden, shocking shower of colored lights that fizzes past your canopy. It looks slow, almost gentle. It is not. I broke. I threw the stick hard over and kicked the rudder. The Spitfire responded like a living thing, leaping into the turn. The world tilted. The sea was suddenly where the sky should be. The G-force pressed down, a great weight on my chest, my vision graying at the edges. I grunted, straining against it, forcing the blood back into my head. When I rolled out, I was alone. The sky was empty. That is the worst part of the first combat. The confusion. One moment there were aircraft everywhere. The next, there is nothing but blue, and the distant line of the coast. I felt a surge of relief, pure and animal. I had survived. I had turned, and nothing had hit me. I was alive. Then I looked down. The sea below me was no longer empty. There were patterns on it, the white, spreading circles of disturbed water. And in the center of each circle, something dark. Wreckage. A patch of oil, spreading like a dark stain. A yellow wing, floating separately, impossibly bright against the gray water. A parachute, half inflated, trailing in the sea like a dying jellyfish. And above it all, the bombers. The Dorniers. They were lower now, a compact, disciplined formation, droning towards the coast. They looked so solid, so permanent. I could see the black crosses on their wings, the glint of the gunners' canopies. They were not specks anymore. They were machines, filled with men, filled with bombs. I forgot the 109s. I forgot the fear. I pushed the stick forward. The nose dropped, the engine note rising to a scream. The world rushed up to meet me. The bombers grew in my sights. I picked one, the one on the outside of the formation. I came in from the side, a classic beam attack. I wanted to see him, to see the whole of him. My thumb found the firing button on the spade grip. I took a breath. I held it. The range closed. 500 yards. 400. He filled the reflector sight now, his wingspan touching the outer rings. I could see details. The spinners on his propellers, the windows in the fuselage, the shape of a gunner in his little dome, his own guns probably aimed at me. I waited. 300. 250. I pressed the button. The noise was immense, a tearing, hammering roar that shook the whole airframe. The wings shuddered. The smell of cordite filled the cockpit instantly, sharp and acrid. I saw my strikes. They walked across his wing, a line of bright flashes, and then they found the engine. A gout of black smoke, thick and oily, poured from the cowling. Pieces flew off. Something small and bright, maybe a piece of cowling, tumbled back through the air. I was so close I had to brake hard to avoid hitting him. As I flashed over his starboard wing, I saw the gunner. He was staring at me. I saw his face, white and round behind the plexiglass. His mouth was open. He was not firing. He was just staring. And then he was gone, and I was climbing away, my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked back. The Dornier was trailing smoke, a long, dark smear against the sky. It was losing height, dropping out of the formation. It was heading down towards the sea. I watched it for a second, 2 seconds. I saw the other bombers close up the gap, unperturbed. They flew on. They did not look back. They did not slow. And then the sky was full again. A 109 flashed across my nose, so close I could see the pilot's helmet, the dark goggles. He was turning, trying to get on my tail. I turned with him. We went around and around, a terrible, grinding circle, each trying to gain the advantage. The world was just his machine and mine, locked in a deadly embrace. I could feel the Spitfire trembling on the edge of a stall, the controls getting sloppy. I could not hold it. I had to brake. I slammed the stick forward and dived straight down towards the sea. The speed built instantly. The airframe groaned. The altimeter unwound like a clock gone mad. 5,000. 4. 3. The sea rushed up, a hard, flat wall. I pulled back on the stick, gently, gently. The gray filled the windscreen. For a horrible second, I thought I would not make it. Then the nose came up, and I was skimming the waves, so low I could see the individual wave tops, the white foam. I climbed back towards the coast, alone again. My hands were shaking. My face was wet with sweat. My mouth tasted of metal and fear. I flew on instruments, my eyes fixed on the horizon, trying not to think about what I had just done. Trying not to see the gunner's face. Trying not to see the Dornier falling. I landed back at Big Fin with my tanks nearly dry. I did not remember the flight home. The mechanics pulled me from the cockpit. My legs would not hold me. I sat on the grass in the shadow of my wing, and I watched the other aircraft come back. They came in 1s and 2s. Some did not come back at all. We were 5 in the flight this morning. 3 of us are here now. The intelligence officer is waiting. I will tell him I damaged a Dornier. I will tell him I was jumped by 109s. I will not tell him about the face in the Dornier's window. There is no beginning. There is no end. There is only the moment, stretched and warped like hot metal. Today was not a day. It was a fever. I do not know how I am here writing this. My hand moves, therefore I exist. But the rest of me is still up there, still turning, still firing, still falling. They came in waves. That is the only way to describe it. Not one raid, but many. The controller's voice was a constant stream in our ears, calm but urgent, a litany of numbers and bearings. 40 plus Canterbury, 20 plus Maidstone, 50 plus Dungeness. The numbers piled up like a ledger of doom. We climbed, and climbed, and climbed. Angels 15, Angels 20. My lungs ached for air, the oxygen mask a cold, rubbery clamp on my face. We were just one squadron. 12 aircraft. We climbed into a sky that was already full of them. I saw the bombers first, a vast, moving carpet to the east. So many they looked like a migration. Heinkels and Dorniers, their formations neat and precise, droning towards London. Above them, weaving and darting, the 109s. They were everywhere. A swarm. A plague. My section leader's voice tight. Line astern, follow me in. Target the bombers. Then we were diving. The world became a tunnel, with the bombers at the end of it. The speed was immense. The controls stiffened. The wind screamed over the wings, a high, thin shriek that cut through the engine's roar. I picked my target, a Heinkel on the port side of a box. I fired. My guns hammered. Tracer flew. I saw strikes along its fuselage. Then I was through them into the formation, a maelstrom of black crosses and flashing guns. And the sky exploded. That is the only word. Exploded. There was no sky left, only aircraft. They were everywhere. Above, below, either side. A hurricane flashed past, streaming glycol, its pilot a dark shape fighting the controls. A 109 crossed my nose, so close I saw the pilot's head turn, saw him see me. We fired at the same instant. I do not know who missed. I kicked rudder, skidded, and he was gone. I fired at everything. At anything with a cross on it. I fired at a 109 climbing away from me. I fired at a Dornier's belly as I flashed underneath it. I fired at a shadow that might have been a 109, or might have been a cloud. My thumb was welded to the button. The smell of cordite was permanent, a fog in the cockpit. Then a hammer blow. The whole aircraft lurched. Something hit me. Hard. The control column jerked in my hand. I looked over my shoulder. The port wing was torn. A great, jagged hole, the size of a wash basin, had been ripped in the leading edge. The fabric was flapping, a terrible, unnatural vibration shaking the whole airframe. I looked for the enemy. Nothing. He was gone. He had hit me and vanished, like a ghost. The Spitfire was sick. She handled like a lorry, heavy and unresponsive. I had to use both hands on the stick. I looked for my squadron. They were gone. I was alone in the middle of them all. A 109 came at me from the front. Head on. We closed at a combined speed of over 500 miles an hour. I saw his wings wink. Tracer streaked towards me, a stream of fire. I did not turn. I could not. I held my course, my own guns hammering. The range closed. 200 yards. 150. His face. I saw his face, white under the leather helmet, his eyes wide behind his goggles. He was young. So young. He was me. At the last second, he broke. He flipped over and dove away. I do not know why. Fear, maybe. Or maybe his guns jammed. I did not care. I was still alive. I dove after him. Not to fight, but to escape. To get down, to get out of that terrible, crowded sky. The altimeter unwound. 10,000. 8. 5. The ground was a blur of green and brown. I leveled out, hedge-hopping, so low I could see cows scattering in a field, a farmer staring up, his face a white disk of shock. I did not know where I was. The compass was spinning. The radio was dead, just a hiss of static. I flew by instinct, following the sun, hoping to find the coast. My hands were clamped on the stick. My whole body was shaking, a fine, uncontrollable tremor. I was crying. I realized it with a shock. Tears were streaming down my face, soaking into the wool of my scarf. I was not sad. I was not afraid. I was just empty. My body was reacting, and I was watching it from somewhere far away. I found an airfield. Not Biggin. Somewhere else. A grass strip, with a few Blenheims parked at the edge. I called on the radio. Nothing. I waggled my wings. I came in fast, too fast, scared of stalling with my damaged wing. The wheels hit the grass with a jolt. I bounced, caught it, and rolled. The airfield rushed past. I saw men running, pointing. I saw a fire tender start up. I stopped at the far end of the field, in a cloud of my own dust. I sat there for a long moment, the engine ticking over, the vibration of familiar comfort. Then I cut the switches. The sudden silence was deafening. Hands helped me out of the cockpit. My legs gave way. They caught me, sat me on the grass. A man in a flight sergeant's uniform knelt beside me. He had a kind face, weathered and old. He offered me a cigarette. I took it. My hands shook so badly I could not light it. He lit it for me, a small flame cupped in his hands against the wind. "You all right, sir?" he asked. I looked at him. I looked at the cigarette. I took a long drag, the smoke burning my lungs. "How many?" I asked. My voice was a croak. He did not ask what I meant. He just shook his head slowly. "A bad day, sir. A very bad day." They gave me tea. Sweet, scalding tea in a thick enamel mug. I sat on the grass by my battered, torn machine, and I drank it. Other aircraft came in. A Hurricane with its rudder shot away. A Spitfire with its canopy shattered. The pilot's face a mask of blood from a cut over his eye. Some did not come in. We listened to the sky, each drone of an engine a moment of hope or despair. Later, they drove me back to Biggin in a lorry. The journey was a blur of darkening lanes and silent villages. When I got back, the atmosphere was different. Subdued. Men spoke in whispers. There were empty beds in the billet. Peter, my flight commander, was not there. Johnny, with the photograph of his baby, was not there. The adjutant, a kindly man who looked after our pay books and our wills, was walking from group to group with a clipboard and a sad, set expression. I walked to dispersal. The deck chairs were empty. A game of cards was abandoned on the grass, the cards starting to curl with dew. I picked them up. A hand of brag, unfinished. I put them on the table in the hut. The hooded bulb was on. The chess game was still there, the pieces frozen in mid-game. I sat in my usual chair, still in my flying suit, still smelling of sweat and cordite and fear. I looked at my hands. They were still now. The trembling had stopped. They lay in my lap, two strange, pale objects that no longer felt like they belonged to me. They had killed today. They had torn metal and, I suppose, torn flesh. They had held the control column, while a boy with a face like mine had stared at me from 150 yards and then fallen away. And now they were still. They were quiet. They were waiting for tomorrow. September 3rd, 1940. 3 days. I have not written for 3 days. There was nothing to say. There was only the silence and the weight of it. They gave me a new aircraft. N-3277. She is a Mark II, fresh from the factory, smelling of dope and new canvas. She has no scratches, no patches, no memories. I do not trust her. I want my old one back, the one with the holes, the one that bled with me. But she is gone, written off, probably melted down for scrap by now. We do not have time for sentiment. The squadron is different. We have been pulled back, just for a few days, to a satellite field in the north. Rest, they call it. A chance to reform. But there is nothing to reform. We are new faces in old uniforms. Pilots, I do not know, sit in the chairs of pilots I did know. They are young, fresh from OTU, their eyes bright with eagerness. They do not know. They cannot know. They ask questions about tactics, about the 109s, about what it is really like. We do not answer. We cannot find the words. So we shrug, and we smoke, and we stare at the sky. The field is quiet. Too quiet. It is a grass strip in the middle of farmland, surrounded by hedgerows and grazing sheep. The only sounds are the lowing of cattle and the distant chug of a tractor. The Nissen hut here is smaller, more primitive. There is a stove in the corner, and we huddle around it in the evenings, for the chill is starting to creep into the air. Autumn is coming. You can smell it in the damp earth, see it in the early mists that cling to the fields at dawn. I sleep. That is the strangest thing. I sleep like the dead, 12, 14 hours a night. My body is taking what it needs, rebuilding itself without asking permission. I wake in the gray dawn, and I lie still, listening to the breathing of the other men in the hut. I count them. 5 of us from the old squadron. 5. We were 18 10 days ago. 18. Now we are 5. The others are the new boys. Their names slide off my memory like water. I do not want to learn them. It is easier not to know. Today I walked. Away from the airfield, down a lane between high hedgerows. The blackberries are ripe, fat and shiny on the brambles. I picked a handful and ate them. They were sweet, so sweet they made my teeth ache. It was the first thing I have tasted in days. The first thing that was not tea or cigarettes or the metallic tang of fear. I stood there in the lane with the juice of the berries on my tongue, and I felt something. Not happiness, not peace, just a small, quiet awareness that I was alive, that the world was still turning, that somewhere in some other existence, men picked blackberries in September and did not think about death. I walked until I came to a village, a small place with a stone church and a pub and a war memorial on the green. The names on the memorial were from the last war. I read them. Smith, Jones, Atkins. 23 names. 23 men from this one small place gone. I wondered if their mothers still walked to the church on Sundays, if their names were still spoken in the pub. I wondered if my name would be on a memorial somewhere, one day. I pushed the thought away. It is a luxury, thinking about the future. We do not have futures. We only have today, and maybe tomorrow. An old woman passed me on the path. She was carrying a basket of vegetables from her garden. She stopped and looked at me. She saw the uniform, the wings on my chest. Her eyes, pale blue and watery, filled with something. Pity, perhaps. Or gratitude. It is hard to tell. God bless you, young man, she said. Her voice was thin, like wind through dry leaves. God bless you and keep you. I did not know what to say. I nodded and I walked on. Her words followed me down the lane. God bless you and keep you. I do not believe in God. Not anymore. Not after watching Peter burn. Not after seeing Johnny's aircraft simply vanish. Not after the face of the boy in the 109. If there is a God, he has abandoned this sky. He has left it to us, and we are making a fine mess of it. Back at the hut, there was a letter waiting for me. My mother's handwriting, neat and looped. I opened it standing by the window, the light fading outside. She writes about the harvest, about the apples in the orchard, about a concert they are organizing in the village hall to raise money for Spitfires. Spitfires. She does not know. She thinks she is helping. She is sending more boys like me into the sky. I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. I will not write back. There is nothing to say. In the evening, we gathered around the stove. Someone had found a wireless, and we listened to the news. The voice was calm, confident. Enough aircraft and pilots have been flung into the battle to ensure our superiority in the air. The 5 of us looked at each other. We did not speak. The new boys nodded, serious and proud. They do not know. They think the voice on the wireless knows something. They think there is a plan, a purpose. They will learn. After the news, we played cards. A desultory game, for matchsticks, no one caring who won. The new boys talked about their training, about their girlfriends, about the leaves they hoped to get. The 5 of us said nothing. We played our cards, and we listened to the wind outside, and we waited for sleep. I am the last one awake now. The fire in the stove has died to embers, a faint red glow. The hut is dark, filled with the sounds of men breathing, men dreaming. I wonder what they dream. I wonder what I will dream. The nightmares have stopped, for now. In their place is just a vast, gray emptiness. A flatness. I feel nothing when I think of Johnny, of Peter. They're just names. Just photographs. The grief is there, I know it is there, but it is buried under something else. Exhaustion, perhaps. Or the simple, animal need to survive. You cannot grieve and fight. You cannot mourn and watch the sky. So you push it down into a deep place, and you seal it over, and you go on. Tomorrow we go back to Biggin, back to the deck chairs, back to the telephone. The rest is over. The new boys will get their chance to see. And we, the 5, we will sit in our chairs and we will watch them, and we will remember. We will remember the faces, the names, the burning machines. And we will say nothing. I looked at myself in the small shard of mirror we have nailed to the wall. I did not recognize the face that looked back. It is thinner, older. The eyes are different. They are not my eyes. They belong to someone who has seen too much, who knows too much. I looked away. I do not want to know that man. The wind has picked up. I can hear it rattling the corrugated iron of the hut. It is a lonely sound. It is the sound of autumn, of the year dying. The leaves will turn soon. The skies will grow gray and low, and the bombers will stay at home. Perhaps we will survive the winter. Perhaps we will be here, in the spring, to see the swallows return. It is a thought I cannot hold on to. It slips away like smoke. I will try to sleep now. I will lie down on this narrow bed, in this hut full of strangers, and I will close my eyes. I will try not to see the flames. I will try not to hear the screams. I will try to remember the taste of blackberries, sweet and sharp, and the voice of an old woman, blessing me. It is not much, but it is all I have. I do not know if this will be my last entry. I do not know if there will be a tomorrow. But tonight I need to write. I need to put something down, to fix this day to the page, before it dissolves into the blur of all the other days. Today was big. Today was the biggest yet. And I am still here. 5 of us are still here. The rest are gone, but I am here, and that fact sits in my chest like a stone. We were scrambled at 11. The sky was hazy, a high, thin veil of cloud that turned the sun into a pale, diffused coin. We climbed through it, the world softening to white, then bursting out into the clear, hard blue above. And there they were, the biggest raid I have ever seen. The controller's voice was strained, almost awed. 200 plus. I say again, 200 plus. Bandits approaching London. All squadrons pancake. Pancake. It is the code for bounce them. As if we were children playing a game. We were not children. We were 12, climbing into a sky that was black with them. The bombers came first, wave after wave, Heinkels and Dorniers and Junkers 88s, their formations so dense they looked like a moving city. Above them, the 109s, layer upon layer, a ceiling of fighter escort. I looked at them and felt nothing. No fear. No excitement. Just a cold, quiet acceptance. This is what we do. This is what we are for. We hit them over the river. I could see the Thames below, a silver snake, and the great sprawl of London, the smoke rising from fires already burning. We dove into the bombers. I picked my target, a Heinkel on the edge of a box, and I fired. I saw my strikes, saw pieces fly. I broke hard and climbed, looking for another. A 109 filled my sight for an instant. I fired. He rolled and dove away, trailing smoke. I did not follow. There were too many. Always too many. The sky was a circus. A Spitfire crossed my path, its pilot waving, a mad, exhilarated gesture. A hurricane was spinning down, its wing gone, a long plume of smoke marking its fall. I saw a parachute open, a small white flower against the brown and green of the city below. I hoped it was one of ours. I did not have time to hope for long. I fired my guns empty. I pressed the button and nothing happened, just a dead click. I broke off, diving for the deck, weaving through the chaos. I flew low over the rooftops of London. I saw people in the streets, looking up. I saw a bus, stopped in the middle of a bridge, its passengers staring at the sky. I saw a woman, holding a child, both of them pointing at me. At me. I was a part of their war, a flash of silver and noise, gone in an instant. I wondered if they would remember me, if they would tell their children about the day they saw a Spitfire fly over their house. I landed at Biggin on fumes. My new aircraft, N-3277, was covered in oil streaks, a few new holes in the wings. The ground crew swarmed over her, checking, patching, refueling. They did not ask if I was all right. They just worked, their faces set and grim. They had been working all day, all week, all month. They were as tired as we were. We sat in the dispersal hut, waiting for the next call. No one spoke. We just sat, drinking tea, smoking, staring at nothing. The wireless was on, a crackling voice reporting on the day's fighting. The RAF has inflicted a severe defeat on the Luftwaffe. One of the new boys, a fresh-faced lad from Devon, whose name I still do not know, smiled at that. The rest of us just looked at our tea. The telephone rang again at 3. Another scramble. Another climb into that terrible sky. This time I was angrier. Or maybe not angry. Something else. Something harder. I flew into them like a man possessed. I fired at everything. I held my button down until the guns ran dry. Then I broke off, reloaded, and went back in. I do not remember individual aircraft. I do not remember individual moments. I remember only the hammering of my guns, the smell of cordite, the constant jinking turn of the aircraft, and the faces. Always the faces. They float in front of me now, a gallery of ghosts. The gunner in the Dornier staring. The 109 pilot, so young, breaking away at the last second. And new ones now. A man in a Heinkel, his canopy shattering, his hands flying to his face. A 109 pilot, bailing out, his parachute streaming behind him as he fell past me, so close I could have touched him. When it was over, when the sky was finally empty and the sun was sinking towards the horizon, I flew home. The coast was a line of gold in the fading light. The fields below were green and peaceful. I could see a farmer bringing in his cows, the small figures of children playing in a garden. It was a scene from another world, a world I had once belonged to. I do not belong to it anymore. I landed in the dusk. The airfield was a chaos of activity, but a different kind of chaos. There was a feeling in the air, an undercurrent of something I could not name. The ground crew cheered as I taxied in. Cheered. I did not understand. I still do not understand. I had only done what I had to do. What we all do. In the debriefing, the intelligence officer was different. He was smiling. Actually smiling. He told us the estimates. 185 enemy aircraft destroyed. A myth, probably a number plucked from the air to make us feel better. But he believed it. We all wanted to believe it. For the first time, the news from the wireless might be true. We might have turned them back. We might have broken them. I walked back to my billet in the dark. The blackout was total, the world reduced to the feel of the path under my feet and the distant drone of a lone aircraft heading home. I stopped and listened. It was one of ours. I knew the sound. The Merlin. The most beautiful sound in the world. I stood there in the darkness, and I let it wash over me. It was a sound of survival. A sound of life. In my room, I lit a candle and sat on the edge of my bed. I am still in my flying suit. I am still tired, so tired that my bones ache. But there is something else now. A quietness. A stillness. The fear is still there. It will always be there. But it is not alone anymore. There is something else, something I cannot name. Pride, perhaps. Or just the simple, stubborn knowledge that I am still here. That we are still here. I think of the others. Of Peter and Johnny and all the rest. I think of their faces, their voices, their laughter. They are gone. They will not come back. But they are here in this room with me. They are in the ache of my bones, in the trembling of my hands, in the images that will haunt my sleep for the rest of my life. They are a part of me now. I carry them with me always. Tomorrow we will do it again. The sun will rise and the telephone will ring, and we will climb into our machines and go back into that terrible sky. But tonight there is a pause, a breath, a moment of silence in the middle of the storm. I blew out the candle and sat in the darkness. The window was a faint gray square. Outside, the world was quiet. No engines, no guns, just the wind in the trees and the distant bark of a fox. Sounds of the country, sounds of home. I am not the same man who wrote the first words in this diary. That man was afraid. He was confused. He did not understand. I understand now. I understand that this is what we are for. This is what we do. We fight. We lose friends. We kill. And we go on. Not because we are brave, not because we are heroes, but because there is no one else. Because the sky is ours to defend, and if we do not do it, no one will. I lay down on the bed, fully clothed, and closed my eyes. The faces came, as they always do. But tonight, they were not accusing. They were just there, silent, present, keeping me company in the dark. I will sleep now, and in the morning, I will get up, and I will put on this uniform, and I will go back to the dispersal hut. I will sit in a deck chair, and I will watch the sky, and I will wait for the telephone to ring. And when it does, I will go, because that is what we do. That is all we do, and it is enough.